Welcome into the Weather Review. I'm your host, Gavin White, and I've got quite a show for you today. Not your typical episode, as it may come as no surprise that I've been gone for the last year and a half, kind of inexplicably. And this is the first time I've posted since the summer of 2023. So it has been a while because it is now February of 2025, which is a little crazy. There's a lot I kind of want to cover in this. I know I'm kind of posting unexpectedly. Made no announcement I was coming back, so surprise, it's back. But no, I'm first and foremost, I apologize for the lack of communication over the last year and a half, and that's where I'm going to start. So yes, I apologize. I realize that I have been absent from this show for the last year and a half. We ended at the end of the summer of 2023, ended with hey, I'm going back to school. I don't know what this is going to look like. Taking a little bit of a break. Don't worry though. I'll let you know when I'm coming back. And I proceeded to not come back. Got partway through that fall semester in 2023. And then life got very busy for a multitude of reasons. If you're really interested, you can Google and figure it out, but I'm not going to go into this here. This is not the time nor the place to talk about that, but life got very busy at the end of 2023. And this was the last thing on my mind, was returning to this show. It wasn't even a thought in my mind, just with all that was going on there at the end of the year. So Christmas break, didn't touch it. Came back into the spring semester in 2024, so now we're back at school January 2024. And then I'm just in the thick of my major classes now, the start of that, and it's just been bogging down. So, I mean, didn't really have much time then, got through the entirety of the semester, podcast never even crossed my mind. Finish up that semester, we got into the summer of 2024 now, so this past summer. I got an internship that summer, which is awesome, a full-time internship. So I was working every day. So pretty much every day over that summer consisted of me waking up in the morning, commuting an hour, working an 8-hour shift, commuting another hour plus back home, eating, reading a little bit, going for a bike ride, and then going to bed because I got to do it all over again the next day. So there really wasn't much time. I don't even know that I thought about it at all over that summer either, just because it was just such a routine of wake up, commute, work, commute, eat, read, bike, sleep, and that was my summer that year, last year. It wasn't that long ago. So then we returned back to school in the fall of 2024. Again, very busy, very involved. And this is when I kind of start to have realizations. Oh, wait, yeah, I forgot to do a podcast the year before. But never really many more thoughts about it. No more thoughts about it beyond that. It's just kind of like okay, whatever type deal. Fall semester is busy between, school, student organizations, involvements, work, football. If you follow college football at all, or even if you don't, I'm going to brag about this anyways because I can. 10 years ago, so a decade ago in 2014, Ohio State won the first ever college football playoff. That was a 4-team playoff. I was in 5th grade. I remember it vividly because I got to stay up on a school night to watch that game. Fast forward a decade later to 2024, the college football playoff expands to 12 teams. So 2014 was the first year of the playoffs. It was a 4-team playoff. This past season, they expanded to a 12-team playoff. And guess who wins the first ever 12-team version of the playoff? The Ohio State Buckeyes. So it's a very exciting fall semester, early part of the spring semester with the football season. Being able to go witness a national championship team is a pretty cool thing. That was awesome. That was a big, oh my gosh moment. College football's awesome. That's all I have to say. Got through Christmas break this past Christmas break again. Not really thinking about it. And then we returned to school here in January of 2025 into the spring semester of my senior year. And I have just kind of the random thought, well, let me log into Spotify for podcasters. And let me just, I don't even know. I doubt anything's happened. And then I have a holy smokes moment because I've seen over the last year and a half since I last uploaded anything that there were a bunch of, not like a crazy amount of streams, but like there were still some people consistently listening to all the episodes across a couple different platforms. I'm like, oh, maybe there is an audience for this out there. I don't know. See, there's quite a few people that are subscribed across a couple of platforms as well. And I'm like, okay, so there's some audience out there. People are clearly listening to this. Maybe I should consider kind of getting back into it. I was a little confused when I was logging into Spotify for podcasters because apparently at some point within the last year and a half, they updated it to now it's Spotify for creators, I believe. But it's the same thing, but like it looks different. It took a minute to readjust. But I saw there were a few hundred streams over the last year and a half, and I'm like, oh, that's a significant number in my book for doing something like this with no platform whatsoever. I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, okay, because the whole reason I got into this in the first place was to improve my communication as it relates to the weather. I want to be better at communicating and talking about the weather to people who are to non-weather people. People that don't study the weather and are not like well versed in it. I wanted to do a better job at communicating that to people, and I would say that was the goal of starting that podcast in 2023. Was okay. This summer I want to work on communicating the weather in a somewhat simple way, and I hope I did a decent job at that, communicating what happened, what was happening, how it happened, why it happened, variations to how that could happen, and so forth. And I think I accomplished my goal. I mean, I would say over the course of that summer, I became slightly better at communicating things like the weather. And then flash forward a year and a half now of, another year and a half of classes and other involvements and commitment. And it's like, okay, yeah, I believe I'm a pretty decent communicator when I need to be. So I've reached that goal, but I can always continue to learn because I'm still a student, albeit only for a few more months. I'm still a student, still learning the science, although I got a good handle on most of it. But I want to continue to improve my communication on it, specifically with the weather, and be able to communicate in a way that anyone, regardless of their experience with weather or terminology, someone who has never heard of a tropical cyclone to someone who wrote a PhD on it can understand what I'm saying. That's I want to be able to communicate in that way because that's going to help me grow professionally because I will be a meteorologist soon. It's a good thing to have professionally and just as a human skill. I mean, that's just a good skill to have to be able to communicate and convey ideas and explanations. That was the goal of all of this, and that remains the goal. But it presents a new challenge now because I know more, I understand more, I've studied more, I understand more of the science behind it. I can explain that much more and all these things. But long story short is I want to continue this. And that brings us to today, February of 2025, recording episode 11 of the Weather Review without an announcement because this is going to drop with no warning whatsoever. You're going to see this on a Monday morning and be like, oh, it's back. Because it is. So that brings us to today. That explains the last year and a half. And again, I apologize for my absence. My lack of communication about it is really what I apologize for, is the fact that I wasn't communicating throughout that. But we're back. I want to continue doing this. I want to continue doing this consistently for the foreseeable future. I want to see how much we can grow this thing because I think there's an audience out there for it, and I think there's a lot of potential to grow it too. So that is a goal of mine here throughout however long I continue this for. Want to continue to get better at communicating the weather, among other things. Want to grow the show. I mean, that's why you get into this, is to communicate about something you're interested in and because you want to grow it and create a community. That's the goal of all of this. So with that, now that we've explained the last year and a half, maybe we should start talking about the future now, kind of how are things going to change? Because inevitably things are going to change. I'm a different person than what I was a year and a half ago, as silly as it may sound. I'm in a stage of my life when I'm growing a lot here. First and foremost, something that you have already noticed is different if you are a Spotify user. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you'll see there's a video option now. So rather than listening on Spotify, you might actually be watching on Spotify. So yes, this is what I look like. If you were ever curious for whatever reason, this is me. So yes, that is something that's new. Is now doing the video version of the podcast. And at the very least, for Spotify users, that's available. For non-Spotify users, so your Apple, Amazon, Google, whatever other podcast platforms there are out there that are scraping this RSS feed, the audio version is just fine. You're just getting the audio of the video, but I don't know. I don't think that's anything you need to worry about in particular. I'm still going to explain things to the best of my ability. I'm going to verbally explain things, and the hope is with this audio version, I can hopefully incorporate some visuals to kind of aid in my explanations. My words will still communicate what I'm trying to communicate at the end of the day, but I'm hoping with this can open up some opportunities with the video to have more visual aid in trying to explain things. So the audio side is not going away. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to add to this because I can do more. So, for example, one of the things I'm exploring is the possibility of starting a YouTube channel. I haven't started one yet, but this is a possibility. Maybe the podcast episodes can be uploaded there. That would kind of open up a whole nother group to be exposed to it, the YouTube audience. Maybe have some original video content up there. I don't really know kind of what the vision is, but that's an idea that we can take this somewhere. Something else you may have noticed is that the intro updated. I think the jingle for one sounds a lot better than the old one. There's no copyright on it because that's just straight from iMovie. So thank you, Apple. I think the intro sounds a lot better. I think it flows better. I mean, there's not really any words in that. It's just kind of the jingle. If you're on Spotify, you saw there were some weather clips on there, and then it's just the logo of this, and then it fades into my beautiful face and the sound of my voice gracing your ears. But I think it sounds better. It flows better. It's a little less awkward. You kind of get the gist of the podcast if you've listened before. Plus, the podcast kind of explains itself in the title. It's the weather review. We're reviewing weather that has recently happened, or weather phenomena and whatnot. You get the point. So there's been some things that have already changed, and then there's other things that I'm kind of floating the idea of changing or adding or tweaking a little bit. One of which is the season and episode counter. I'm kind of floating the idea of upping the season numbering so right now we're technically on like season 0 of the show, but maybe in May, once I graduate, walk the stage, have my degree in hand, and I'm a degreed meteorologist from that point on, maybe upping it to 1, like 0 for student, 1 for meteorologist. I don't know. I think it sounded cooler in my head and on paper, and now I'm saying it out loud. I mean, that's probably unnecessary. So forget that I said that altogether, actually. We're not going to do that. That's unnecessary. We're just going to keep counting up the episodes one by one. There's no point for seasons on this type of a show because we're just talking about the weather. That's all that this is. It's a Earth Sciences podcast. Content updates. That is something that I'm floating. There's a lot of thoughts in my head, some of which I'm going to talk about, some of which I'm not. But in terms of content, still going to discuss recent weather events. I mean, that's kind of the point of this whole show is to talk about recent weather events. But I kind of like the idea of maybe adding some other segments, maybe some segments or episodes even on just kind of commentary on the weather community, kind of what's going on within the meteorological field. Who are some of the big people right now? Kind of what's going on across the country? What do meteorologists think about things? How do they interact with each other at the different groups of meteorology? Kind of what's going on? What are some of the advancements? What's some of the new science that's come out? Some of the new suggestions? What's some of the new technological things that we're seeing on TV or on our phones or whatever? I don't know. Just kind of thoughts on that. Just kind of my commentary on what's going on within the weather community. Maybe opening to a little bit of political commentary, only as it relates to the weather. So not really, I don't like talking about politics, at least not publicly. So I wouldn't be going into like that kind of thing, but like maybe the politics of the weather field, like very surface level, not really not like politics, but like not like red blue politics, but like interpersonal bureaucratic politics, maybe. I don't know. Just stuff as it relates to the weather. I'm just kind of floating, just kind of spitballing. And really, this is also part of me just thinking out loud, too. I don't know, it's a possibility. It's kind of segment episodes talking, just commentary on the weather community and kind of things going on within it. I thought about maybe segments or episodes, maybe debunking some common weather myths. That's an idea. Like, for example, heat lightning does not actually exist, contrary to popular belief. Heat lightning is just simply the lightning from a thunderstorm that is too far away for you to hear. So you can see it, but it's too far away for you to hear it. That's all that heat lightning is. You don't get lightning just because it's been hot out. That's not a thing. It's just too far away for you to hear it. I don't know, maybe things like that, an episode or segment on debunking other myths related to that and kind of explaining actually what it is and what we perceive it to be. Maybe some how-tos, kind of how to prepare for a tornado or a hurricane. Maybe some tips for severe weather, especially as we're getting into severe weather season. That would be a great thing to have. I don't know. I'm open to doing some interviews or taking part in interviews down the road, whether on this show or other shows. I think it's interesting. I always enjoy, in other podcasts I listen to, I enjoy hearing the perspective of people other than the host from time to time. Just kind of like a nice flair. A nice conversation going. It can be pretty interesting. So that's something I'm exploring, open to. Well, a bird just flew right in front of my window. I apologize. It scared me. That's something I'm open to as well and exploring kind of how that would work in this type of a format. Could be other weather podcasters. Could be other people in the weather community. Could be eyewitnesses. I don't know. It could be anything really. I mean, this is me spitballing and throwing out some potential content updates that you could see over the coming months. There are other ideas that I am very excited for that I'm choosing to keep under wraps for right now. I think you'll understand why once I unveil them down the road, once they're relevant again. But I do have a few things up my sleeve that I'm excited for that I think could help excite some of this. I don't know. There's a lot right now that could be changing. You'll see it in due time. That being said, I am completely open to suggestions. And in fact, I am asking you, please give me suggestions. Things you want to see, things you want to see changed. Maybe things you would like me to talk about or have my thoughts on. You have any questions? I mean, I want to do this in the best possible way that is for you, the viewer/listener. In a way, it's interesting to you. So if you're on Spotify, you'll see right about now, or maybe at the end of the episode, not sure when they put it in, there'll be a poll. Answer the poll with any suggestions that you have or comments or questions. Anyone else listening on any other platform, you can DM me on X at the Gavin White WX. Please shoot me a DM with any suggestions you have for the show. You can also email the podcast. That is the Weather Review Podcast at gmail.com. I can't guarantee I'll respond to everything, especially if there's a lot. But if there's something really interesting, I'll let you know. So yeah, DM me on X, email the podcast. I can't guarantee I'll see it immediately. I don't check the podcast email that frequently, but every once in a while I kind of pop in there to see if there's anything that I need to pay attention to. But yeah, DM me. If you're on Spotify, answer the poll with any suggestions. Anyone else listening on any other platform, DM me or email the podcast with your suggestions or your comments or your questions, anything that you would love to see. I'm open to it. Yeah, so that covers the future of the show. Going to resume doing this for the foreseeable future. It's exciting. Covers the last year and a half. That covers the current. But yeah, I would be remiss if I went this entire episode without talking about the weather at all. I mean, I guess I talked about heat lightning a little bit, but without talking about recent weather. Just for a few moments, I'm gonna talk about something here. You know what a thunderstorm is. You've seen it, you've heard it, you've felt it, likely. You know what a thunderstorm is. odds are you've probably heard of thunder snow as well. That's something any meteorologist will freak out about if they get to experience it. I got to experience it once as a kid around Christmas time of all times. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing when it's snowing and then all of a sudden you hear a rumble of thunder. It's a cool thing. You've heard of thunderstorm. You've heard of thunder snow. Have you ever heard of thunder ice? Now, I know what you're thinking right now. Oh, he's making up stuff right now. This is why you're still in school, kids. You don't know everything. And you're right, I don't know everything. But I do know thunder ice is a real thing. And here's how I know, because it just happened. On Wednesday, February 5th, earlier this week actually, there were, in the evening and overnight hour, well, there was a shortwave trough that was coming through, which is associated with, can be associated with some severe weather, especially in the springtime, especially. But in general, there's basically a little kink in the jet stream that presented the opportunity for some severe weather across Tennessee, Kentucky, the Ohio Valley, a little bit out east too, but that was kind of where it was focused. There was actually a tornado in Kentucky as a part of the system. But that's besides the point. There were some, not pop-up thunderstorms because they were part of the system, but there were a series of cells that started developing and maturing, and there were some scattered thunderstorms in close proximity. So it was really just a band of thunderstorms, some of which were coming across the Columbus, Ohio area, which is where Ohio State is. That's where I'm at right now for school. There's a band of thunderstorms, it was a few hours of a few thunderstorms kind of scattered throughout. But the kicker is, down at the ground, the temperature was like 29 degrees Fahrenheit. That's below freezing. Freezing is 32. So all the rain that was in the thunderstorm precipitated as whatever it was. It either remained as rain or turned into rain, depending on where it was, up in the atmosphere, because the atmosphere there, it was above freezing. It was warm, so you can have liquid water. So the storm was coming. It was raining, but as it fell closer to the ground, the air got colder and colder and colder, and all of a sudden, the rain starts to freeze. Hits the ground, freezes upon impact because the ground is below freezing. That's freezing rain right there. So you have freezing rain coming out of these rain cells. And then all of a sudden, at 1 a.m., while everyone's trying to sleep, boom! There's a rumble of thunder. Lo and behold, in Columbus, Ohio, at 1 a.m. going on the morning of February 6th, we had thunder ice. There was freezing rain actively occurring on the ground and a thunderstorm overhead. And it was the coolest thing. It's like thunder snow. It's so cool because you never experience it. And so it was cool. We had thunder ice in February. Albeit the last few years have been there's been some strange weather in Ohio in February, but that's a story from another time. But yes, that's your little, that's a little segment of recent weather that has happened, because I'd be remiss if I didn't have that, even in this episode, explaining that we're so back. But yeah, as always, I appreciate you listening. I really do. Give the show a follow, rate, leave a comment if you can. Again, I'm open to suggestions. Reach out, please. I'm all ears. Appreciate you for listening to this show. And yeah, I'll catch you next time, because we're back. We are back. Thanks for listening, y'all. Have a good one.